Have you ever had one of those days when nothing seems to go your way? That's exactly how Maya felt. Maya was a hardworking, kind-hearted girl who had grown up with very little. Life had never been easy, but she always did her best to make things work. Every day after finishing her schoolwork, she spent hours working as a delivery driver for a small restaurant in her neighborhood. It wasn't the best job, but it helped her keep the lights on at home, and that's all that mattered to her. One rainy evening, while Maya was wrapping up her shift, her phone buzzed with a last-minute order. It was for a large dinner delivery, but the location caught her eye immediately. A grand mansion on the outskirts of the city, somewhere she'd never delivered before. The address seemed out of place, especially considering it was far beyond the typical neighborhoods she served. The restaurant owner, noticing her hesitation, reassured her. "Go ahead, Maya. This one's a big tipper, or so I've heard. It could be worth it." Maya, always eager to help and earn a little extra, nodded and agreed to take the delivery. As she sped through the dark streets, rain tapping against her helmet, her thoughts drifted. She wondered what kind of person lived in a mansion like that. Someone rich, obviously, but why would someone so wealthy order food from a modest small-town restaurant like hers? The thought intrigued her, and before she knew it, she was turning into a long, winding driveway. It was nothing like the home she was used to. Everything around her screamed luxury. The massive gates opened on their own, as if they had been expecting her. The mansion loomed ahead, illuminated by soft golden lights that made it look even more imposing. Maya parked her bike, wiped the rain from her face, and carefully carried the food towards the front door. For a brief second, she considered how soaked and tired she must look. But that didn't matter. A job was a job, and she was here to deliver. The order. The doorbell echoed through the large house as she pressed it, and for a moment, Maya stood there in the cold, wondering if anyone would answer. After what felt like an eternity, the door finally swung open. A man stood there, tall and impeccably dressed, his dark hair slicked back. He looked like he had just stepped out of a movie, charming but distant. His eyes, however, carried a weight of mystery that made Maya feel a bit uneasy. "Delivery for Mr. Daniels?" Maya asked hesitantly, glancing at the receipt. The man smiled slightly, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. He nodded and motioned for her to step inside. She crossed the threshold. The warmth of the mansion enveloped her, a stark contrast to the stormy night outside. Maya couldn't help but admire the grandeur around her. Marble floors, chandeliers, and artwork that probably cost more than her entire year's salary. The man who introduced himself as Lucas led her to a dining room that seemed ready for a feast, though no one else appeared to be around. "Quite the house," Maya said, trying to make small talk, though her curiosity was piqued. "Why order from us? You must have a personal chef or something, right?" Lucas gave her a cryptic smile. "I like to support local businesses," he replied. There was something about his tone, though, that made her think there was more to it. But before she could ask any more questions, he handed her a thick envelope. "Your payment, with a little extra for your trouble," he said. Maya blinked, confused. Usually she was handed a few bills, or coins, but this envelope felt heavy. Lucas had already turned away, leaving her standing there with 1,000 questions running through her mind. As she made her way back to the door, she hesitated, curiosity gnawing at her. She decided to peek inside the envelope. Her breath caught in her throat. There were not only bills, but crisp, $100 bills, stacked neatly inside. It was more money than she had ever seen in one place. Her mind raced. Why would someone leave her this much for a simple food delivery? What was the catch? Before she could process what was happening, Lucas appeared behind her. "Is everything all right?" he asked, his voice calm, but laced with an undercurrent of something unspoken. Maya quickly closed the envelope, her heart pounding in her chest. Yes, she stammered. Thank you. I appreciate the tip. But as she stepped back out into the rain, the mansion's door closing quietly behind her, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something much bigger going on. The entire ride back home, the envelope sat heavily in her bag, a reminder that her life had just taken an unexpected turn. Later that night, after arriving home and drying off, she placed the envelope on her kitchen table and stared at it for what felt like hours. What was she supposed to do with this? Should she keep it? Should she report it? Who even was Lucas Daniels? He had the aura of someone important, someone powerful. But why was he paying her so much money? That's when it hit her. She had forgotten something. In her rush to get out of the mansion, she hadn't given Lucas the receipt to sign. It was something so simple, so routine, but in the haze of the strange encounter, it had completely slipped her mind. With a sigh, Maya decided she'd have to go back. Maybe she could get more answers while she was at it. As she prepared herself to return to the mansion, little did she know, this small mistake would unravel a web of secrets she never saw coming. What Maya didn't realize was that Lucas Daniels wasn't just a wealthy client. He was a billionaire with a past full of intrigue and danger. And by accepting his money, she had unknowingly stepped into a world that was far more dangerous than she could have ever imagined. Just as she was about to leave, her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. You left without finishing the transaction. Come back. We have more to discuss. Maya froze, her hands trembling. Something told her that this was only the beginning of a much bigger story, one that would change her life forever. Maya's heart raced as she stared at the message on her phone. She didn't even know how Lucas had gotten her number, but the text felt like a warning. The words, "We have more to discuss," echoed in her mind, making her stomach churn with anxiety. She had no idea what she had gotten herself into, but something told her this wasn't just about a forgotten receipt. Torn between fear and curiosity, she couldn't stop herself from grabbing her jacket and keys. Maybe it was reckless, but she couldn't let this mystery go. There was too much at stake now, too many questions swirling around her head. And besides, the money he had given her was too much for something so simple. What if it was a mistake? What if there were strings attached? The drive back to the mansion felt even longer this time. The rain had stopped, but the night was eerily silent. As she pulled up to the gate, it opened automatically again, as if she were being watched. The mansion loomed ahead, dark and foreboding. She parked her bike, took a deep breath, and made her way to the front door. Before she could knock, the door creaked open, revealing Lucas standing in the hallway. He looked as calm as ever, but there was a strange intensity in his eyes that made Maya uneasy. "You came back," he said, his voice smooth but unreadable. "I had to," Maya replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "You didn't sign the receipt, and the money you gave me, it's too much." "I think there's been a mistake," Lucas chuckled softly, stepping aside to let her in. "No mistake. You earned it." Maya frowned, feeling more confused than ever. "But why? I just delivered food. That can't be worth this much." Lucas studied her for a moment, before motioning for her to follow him. They walked through the vast, dimly lit corridors of the mansion until they reached a library. Its walls, lined with old leather-bound books. Lucas sat down in a high-backed chair and gestured for Maya to sit across from him. "There's more to this than a simple delivery," Lucas began, his voice low. "You see, I've been watching you for a while, Maya." Her blood ran cold. "Watching me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes, he said calmly. I know about your situation. You're struggling, working 2 jobs just to make ends meet. Your father left when you were young. Your mother's health is deteriorating, and you're doing everything you can to keep your family afloat. Maya's heart pounded in her chest. How did he know all of this? She felt exposed, like someone had peeled back the layers of her life and laid them bare for a stranger to see. Why? Do you care? She asked, trying to sound braver than she felt. Lucas leaned forward, his eyes locking onto hers. Because you remind me of someone. Someone I once knew. Maya didn't know what to say. The air in the room felt heavy, thick with tension. It was clear that Lucas wasn't telling her everything. But before she could press him further, he stood up and walked over to a bookshelf. He pulled out a thick envelope and handed it to her. Take this, he said. It's more money, enough to help you and your family for a long time. Maya stared at the envelope, her hands trembling. Why are you doing this? What do you want from me? Lucas smiled, but it was a sad smile, full of something Maya couldn't quite place. I don't want anything from you, Maya. I just want to help. But Maya didn't believe him. There had to be more to it than that. She stood up, clutching the envelope tightly in her hands. I don't need charity, she said, her voice firm. If you want to help me, then tell me the truth. Who are you really, and why are you so interested in me? For a moment, Lucas didn't respond. He simply stared at her, as if weighing his next words carefully. Finally, he sighed and motioned for her to sit back down. You're right to be suspicious, he admitted. I haven't been completely honest with you. I'm not just some billionaire who lives in a big house. I come from a family with a very complicated past, a past that involves some dangerous people. Maya's heart skipped a beat. Dangerous people. Lucas nodded. I've spent most of my life keeping my distance from them, but lately, things have gotten more complicated. They've started to watch me, and they're interested in anyone who comes into my life. That's why I've been keeping an eye on you, Maya. I didn't want you to get caught up in something you weren't prepared for. Maya's mind was racing. This was way more than she had bargained for. So what? You think I'm in danger now? Lucas's expression grew serious. Not yet, but if they find out about you, they might try to use you to get to me. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. Use me how? Lucas looked away, his jaw clenched. Leverage. Blackmail. They'll do whatever it takes to get what they want. And if that means going after the people I care about, they won't hesitate. Maya's breath caught in her throat. People he cared about. Did that include her? She didn't know what to think, but one thing was clear. Her life was no longer her own. Whatever Lucas was involved in, she had been dragged into it, whether she liked it or not. I don't want to put you in danger, Lucas said quietly. That's why I gave you the money. I want you to leave, to go somewhere safe. But Maya shook her head. I can't just leave. My mum needs me. And besides, I'm not going to run from something I don't even understand. Lucas sighed, running a hand through his hair. I knew you'd say that. Before Maya could respond, the door to the library burst open, and a man she didn't recognize stormed in. He was tall, with a rugged look, and eyes that seemed to see right through her. Lucas, we have a problem, the man said, his voice urgent. Lucas stood up immediately, his face tense. What is it? They know, the man said, his eyes darting toward Maya. They know about her. Maya's heart stopped. Maya's body tensed as the weight of the stranger's words settled over her. They know about her. The words echoed in her head, and for the first time, the reality of the danger became real. She glanced at Lucas, whose calm demeanor had completely vanished. His eyes were filled with a mix of fear and determination. emotions that seemed so out of place for someone as composed as he had been earlier. Lucas moved quickly, grabbing the stranger by the arm and pulling him aside. Their voices a hurried whisper, but Maya could still hear bits and pieces of the conversation. "They're already on their way," the man said, glancing at Maya with concern. "She needs to be out of here now." Lucas turned toward Maya, his expression unreadable, but she could feel the urgency in the air. "Maya, we don't have much time. You need to trust me." Maya's heart raced, her mind spinning with questions she hadn't even had a chance to ask. But there wasn't time for questions now. She could see it in their eyes. The danger was real. She wasn't just an innocent bystander anymore. She was a target. And suddenly, she realized that everything Lucas had been doing, the money, the warnings, it had all been to protect her. "Where am I supposed to go?" Maya asked, her voice shaky, trying to mask the fear creeping in. Lucas grabbed a set of keys from the table. "You'll take one of my cars. Drive to the address I gave you earlier. But don't stop for anything. I'll handle things here." Maya hesitated, unsure if she could leave him behind. "But what about you?" Lucas's eyes softened for a moment, and he gave her a small, reassuring smile. "I'll be fine. This is my fight, not yours. You need to be safe." Before Maya could protest, the stranger motioned for her to follow him. They moved quickly through the hallway, and Maya's mind raced with all the things she still didn't understand. Why her? What did these people want? And why was Lucas so willing to put himself in harm's way for her? As they reached the garage, Maya noticed the lights of a car approaching the mansion through the large, ornate windows. The stranger cursed under his breath. "They're here," he said, pulling Maya toward a sleek black car. "Get in now." Maya didn't have time to think. She jumped into the driver's seat and started the car, her hands trembling as she gripped the steering wheel. The stranger leaned in through the window one last time. "Don't stop, no matter what." Maya nodded, her heart pounding in her chest, and hit the gas pedal. The tires screeched as the car sped out of the garage, and she glanced in the rear view mirror just in time to see a group of shadowy figures approaching the mansion. She couldn't believe this was happening. One minute she was delivering food, and the next, she was driving for her life. The drive was a blur of streetlights and rain-slicked roads. Maya's mind raced with questions, but there was no time to dwell on them now. She could only hope that Lucas would be okay, that whatever he was dealing with, he'd survive it. But even as she sped away from the mansion, a sinking feeling settled in her chest. She had left Lucas behind to face something dark, something she didn't fully understand. After what felt like hours, she finally reached the address Lucas had given her. It was a small cabin nestled in the woods, far from the city. As she stepped out of the car, the silence around her was deafening. The wind rustled through the trees, and for the first time since she had arrived at the mansion, Maya felt a strange sense of calm. She was safe, for now. But as she stood there, staring out into the darkness, she couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the end. Something about Lucas's story still didn't add up. Why had he gone to such lengths to protect her? And who were these people coming after them? Just as she turned to head inside the cabin, her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was a text message from Lucas. "It's over. You're safe now. But this isn't goodbye, Maya. I'll explain everything soon. Stay where you are." Maya stared at the message, her heart pounding in her chest. She wanted answers, needed them, really. But for now, all she could do was wait. The danger had passed, but the mystery of Lucas remained. The next few days felt like a strange limbo. Maya stayed at the cabin, as Lucas had asked, waiting for news. And though the fear had subsided, the questions still gnawed at her. Why had Lucas gone to such lengths to protect her? And what did he mean when he said they knew about her? Finally, after days of silence, Lucas arrived at the cabin. His usual calm, confident demeanor had returned, but there was something different about him now, an openness that hadn't been there before. "I owe you an explanation," he said, sitting down across from her. Maya nodded, bracing herself for whatever was coming next. Lucas sighed. "The people who were after me, they're part of a group my family has been involved with for years. They deal in power, influence, money, and they don't take kindly to people who don't fall in line. I've spent most of my life distancing myself from them, but when they found out about you, well, they saw an opportunity to use you against me." Maya's stomach tightened. "But why me? What do I have to do with any of this?" Lucas looked at her, his expression softening. "Because I care about you, Maya. And they knew that. They knew you were important to me, and they were going to use that against me." Maya's heart skipped a beat. She didn't know what to say, but somehow, in that moment, everything clicked into place. The money, the warnings, the danger. It had all been because Lucas had wanted to protect her. And now, despite everything, she knew that their lives would be forever intertwined. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner," Lucas said quietly. "I just wanted to keep you safe." Maya nodded, feeling a strange sense of peace wash over her. "I understand." And with that, the tension that had hung between them finally dissolved. The danger was behind them now, but the connection they had forged would remain. Maya didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful.